So this video will mostly have spoilers for episode 14 of season 8 for The Walking Dead. So we got some really great scenes in this episode with the death of Jared, Morgan, and Rick massacring walkers and savers alike. Negan and Jadis' interaction was also pretty interesting. We did get some information regarding that helicopter too, but any possible explanation for the helicopter I went in length about in my previous video, so I'll just keep this one brief. The helicopter does appear and it floats nearby for a little bit. It seems like it's waiting for someone to give a signal for a pickup. Obviously Jadis. Jadis in earlier shots had a walkie-talkie, like in her room, on her desk. So obviously she's been in communication with whoever's operating the helicopter. There are theories that suggest Jadis is a part of the Commonwealth. I don't think it's the Commonwealth. I don't think they're going to get introduced that early. So it's probably something that we will have to find out, I hope, by the end of the season. I really liked Negan in this episode. I mean, if you think about it, Rick did terrible things compared to Negan. Above all else, Rick proved that his promises to people mean absolutely nothing nowadays. Negan's promise, however, still means something. Like, imagine if Rick and Negan make you two separate promises. Who will you believe will actually keep theirs? I'd honestly, at this point in the season, trust Negan over Rick. So Negan, while being trapped, makes a promise to Jadis that he's going to set things right. He's clearly referring to Simon, whose days are probably very numbered. We know from the teasers that Simon isn't killed immediately in the next episode, and that he's been talking to Dwight, probably about starting a revolution to get rid of Negan and put him in charge. So is Negan going to keep his promise? I really think he will. Negan left on good terms with Jadis. I got the sense he genuinely did care for the events that transpired there, the massacre of all her people. So even if it doesn't look like it, I do think Negan will kill Simon in the next episode. The fact that Jadis essentially kidnapped Negan and let him go afterwards first shows that the entire event served no purpose in the end. I mean, other than keeping Negan away from the battle for a little bit, but also that Jadis is very enraged and confused. Jadis must have some connection with the helicopter group, but likely we won't find anything new about it in the next episode, since that seems to be more focused on Daryl and Rosita's quest to kill Eugene, or at least kidnap him. Daryl and Rosita are shown very briefly, and it's toward the end of the episode. That was a very weird move on AMC's part to even show them as part of the teasers, like the overall teasers, since it wasn't actually teasing anything in this episode. The shots of Daryl and Rosita were teasing stuff for episode 14, so I really don't have much to say about Daryl and Rosita, but the next episode's clearly going to be focused on them. Saviors ambush Morgan and Rick while they're searching for them, which was a terrible mistake for them in the end. The most surprising thing in this episode is that Rick really can't be trusted anymore. He's so far gone from the Rick of season 1. He actually makes a promise to let the Hilltop take in the saviors that were holding them captive. A lot of the saviors actually agree to go with Rick. After the Walker herd invades that building, Rick is cut free by one of the saviors, and he quickly does away with the saviors, treating them like they're nothing more than the walkers that Morgan was killing. It seems like he has absolutely no remorse. Something that actually changes when he reads Carl's letter by the end of this episode. As the battle was ending, Rick was recovering from slaying not only the walkers, but the saviors he promised to let live. Morgan wandered off to investigate someone that was lurking away from them, Jared. And Jared finally dies in this episode. The most brutal thing he's done is indirectly kill Henry's older brother. But it's him as a character that people hate most. He's the absolute worst kind of person, making fun of others, showing the lack of care toward anyone but himself. He even called Rick Curly. That's pretty ridiculous. So after some tackling and fighting, Morgan eventually gets him on the other side of a fence. He holds Jared there by grabbing onto his shirt, while some walkers just rip him into pieces. This is essentially the same way Noah died, on the other side of a wall that's clearly visible. Jared, however, deserves this kind of death far more than Noah did. So we found out way earlier in this episode that Rick hasn't even read Carl's letter to him yet, in the extended scene with Rick and Michonne. I was confused at first because I thought that was the letter that he was talking about when Rick and Negan were talking on the walkie-talkies. I suppose that may have been Negan's letter that Rick read. And another point is the episode deliberately didn't show us who Negan picked up near the end of the episode. My bets are on that it's Laura. Laura is the savior that found out basically that Dwight betrayed Negan. If this is actually true, it's going to be a very interesting dynamic for them in the next episode. We know from the teasers that Negan doesn't outright do anything at all, but more plays with Dwight knowing what he's done, if that is actually Laura. It's also possible Laura won't tell Negan for a bit later in the episode. We'll just have to watch and see. Overall, I thought this episode was fantastic. The last couple have been great. There aren't these long, drawn-out shots of nothing happening like so many episodes earlier in Season 8 have been filled with. I'd rate it around the same quality as the previous episode, episode 13. The next episode, I'm excited mostly for any Negan stuff we get. Also, Rick finally reading Carl's letter and seeing how he reacts to it. The Eugene, Daryl, Rosita stuff, I'm sure will be something, but it's definitely not on the top of my list for things to watch out for. I'm just not really excited for that storyline or where it's going to go, mostly for everything else. But as usual, if you like this video, remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.